Greetings, true believers. Well, it's time to look at the final film in Phase 2 of the MCU, which is Ant-Man. So, let's take a look at it. In 1989, scientist Hank Pym resigns from S.H.I.E.L.D. after discovering their attempt to replicate his Ant-Man shrinking technology. Believing the technology would be dangerous if replicated, Pym vows to hide it for as long as he lives. In the present day, Pym's estranged daughter, Hope Van Dyne, and former protege Darren Cross have forced him out of his company, Pym Technologies. Cross is close to perfecting a shrinking suit of his own, the Yellow Jacket, which horrifies Pym. Upon his release from prison, well-meaning thief Scott Lang moves in with his old cellmate Louise. Lang visits his daughter Cassie unannounced and is chastised by his former wife Maggie and her police detective fiancé Paxton for not providing child support. Unable to hold down a job because of his criminal record, Lang agrees to join Louise's crew and commit a burglary. Lang brings him to a house and cracks its safe, but only finds what he believes to be an old motorcycle suit, which he takes home. After trying the suit on, Lang accidentally shrinks himself to the size of an insect. Terrified by the experience, he returns the suit to the house, but is arrested on the way out. Pym, the homeowner, visits Lang in jail and smuggles the suit into his cell to help break him out. Pym, who manipulated Lang through an unknowing Louise into stealing the suit as a test, wants Lang to become the new Ant-Man to steal the Yellow Jacket from Cross. Having been spying on Cross after discovering his intentions, Van Dyne and Pym train Lang to fight and control ants. While Van Dyne harbors resentment towards Pym about her mother Janet's death, he reveals that Janet, known as the Wasp, disappeared into a subatomic quantum realm while disabling a Soviet nuclear missile. Pym warns Lang that he could suffer a similar fate if he overrides his suit's regulator. They send him to steal a device that will aid their heist for the Avengers headquarters, where he briefly fights Sam Wilson. Cross perfects the Yellow Jacket and hosts an unveiling ceremony at Pym Technologies headquarters. Lang, along with his crew and a swarm of flying ants, infiltrates the building during the event, sabotages the company's servers, and plants explosives. While he attempts to steal the Yellow Jacket, he, along with Pym and Van Dyne, are captured by Cross, who intends to sell both the Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man suits to Hydra. Lang breaks free, and he and Van Dyne dispatch most of the Hydra agents, though one flees with a vial of Cross's particles and Pym is shot. Lang pursues Cross, while the explosives detonate, imploding the building as Pym and Van Dyne escape. Cross owns the Yellow Jacket and attacks Lang before Lang is arrested by Paxton. Cross takes Cassie hostage to lure Lang into another fight. Lang overrides the regulator and shrinks to subatomic size to penetrate Cross's suit and sabotage it to shrink uncontrollably, presumably killing Cross. Lang disappears into the quantum realm but manages to reverse the effects and return to the macroscopic world. Out of gratitude for Lang's heroism, Paxton comes up for Lang to keep him out of prison. Seeing that Lang survived and returned from the quantum realm, Pym wonders if his wife is alive as well. Later, Lang meets up with Louise, who tells him that Wilson is looking for him. In a mid-credits scene, Pym shows Van Dyne a new Wasp prototype suit and offers it to her. In a post-credits scene, Wilson and Steve Rogers have Bucky Barnes in their custody. Unable to contact Tony Stark because of the Accords, Wilson mentions that he knows someone who can help. Ooh. So let's look at the production of this movie, beginning with the development. Development of an Ant-Man film began as early as the late 1980s, when Ant-Man co-creator Stan Lee pitched the idea to New World Pictures, Marvel Comics' parent company at the time. However, Walt Disney Pictures was developing a film based on a similar concept, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and although Ant-Man went into development, nothing came to fruition. In 2000, Howard Stern met with Marvel in an attempt to purchase the film rights to Ant-Man. In May of that year, Artisan Entertainment announced a deal with Marvel to co-produce, finance, and distribute a film based on Ant-Man. In 2003, Edgar Wright and his writing partner Joe Cornish wrote a treatment for Artisan, with Wright explaining that it revolved around Scott Lang as a burglar so he could have gone slightly in the more Elmore Leonard route, though Artisan wanted the film to be like a family thing. However, Wright believed that the treatment was never sent to Marvel. A year later, the duo pitched the film to Marvel Studios' then head of production, Kevin Feige. In April 2006, Marvel Studios hired Wright to direct and co-write Ant-Man with Cornish as part of the company's first slate of independently produced films. Wright would also co-produce the film along with his Big Talk Productions partner, Nira Park. At the 2006 San Diego Comic-Con International, Wright said he was intrigued by the story's high concept and character. Wright also stressed that the film would not be a spoof, but an action-adventure with some comedic elements and would incorporate both the Hank Pym and Scott Lang incarnations of the character. Wright said that he was looking to do a prologue where you see Pym as Ant-Man in action in the 60s, and sort of Tales to Astonish mode, basically. And then the contemporary, sort of flash forward, is Scott Lang's story, and how he comes to acquire the suit, how he crosses paths with Hank Pym, and then, in an interesting sort of Machiavellian way, teams up with him. Next February, Wright said that the project has been a holding pattern while the script was being revised, and that he had been doing research for the film by studying nanotechnology. In March 2008, Wright said that the first draft of the script had been completed and he was working on the second. Stanley tweeted in February 2010 that Marvel was prepping the film and that he met with Wright for lunch to discuss the character. Wright noted that there was no timetable for the film because Marvel did not consider the character to be one of their bigger tentpole priorities. So, it's more like me and Kevin Feige saying, let's make a good script that works. It's all about a great genre film, and that isn't necessarily relying on anything else. At the 2010 San Diego Comic-Con International, Wright remarked that because his film would be an origin story and would not be released until after the Avengers, the first Avengers film would not include Ant-Man, although Wright acknowledged that the character might appear in future Avengers films. In January 2011, Wright stated that he had resumed writing the script for the film following the conclusion of the international promotion for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and by April he and Cornish delivered the second draft of Ant-Man to Marvel. At the 2011 San Diego Comic-Con International, Wright revealed a third draft had been handed in. In May 2012, Feige said that the project was as close as it's ever been, while Wright teased the film by tweeting a pictogram of Ant-Man. In June, Wright spent just under a week shooting footage for a reel that would be used to test out the potential look and tone of his movie, as well as to decide how convincing Ant-Man's powers look on screen. The test footage was screened to audiences during the Marvel Studios panel at the 2012 San Diego Comic-Con International, with Wright confirming that Ant-Man would happen. Jermaine Lesher of Slash Film felt the footage worked and was awesome, as it had a totally different vibe from the other Marvel films. It was much more like something you'd recognize from Hot Fuzz. Lesher, along with Katie Rich of Cinema Blend, also enjoyed the costume design choice. Reed said the costume was influenced by Asian tokusatsu superheroes such as Ultraman and Inframan. That October, Disney scheduled the film for release on November 6, 2015. Feige stated in January 2013 that Ant-Man would be part of Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and indicated in May that the screenplay needed to be modified in order to fit into the universe, as the project had been in development since the first Iron Man film. Feige also stated that shooting was slated to begin sometime in 2014, and that casting would begin toward the end of 2013. In July 2013, Wright said that he and Cornish had completed the script for the film and that Marvel allowed him to delay its project so that he could complete The World's End, as that film's producer Eric Fellner was diagnosed with cancer. In August 2013, after Joss Whedon, director of Avengers Age of Ultron, announced that Hank Pym would not be Ultron's creator, Wright said Ultron was never a part of the story of Ant-Man, explaining that just to sort of set up what Ant-Man does is enough for one movie. Wright described Ant-Man as a standalone film, but said it could fit into the larger continuity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, explaining, "I like to make it standalone because I think the premise of it needs time. I want to put the crazy premise of it into a real world, which is why I think Iron Man works because it's a relatively simple universe. It's relatable. I definitely wanted to go into finding a streamlined format where you could use the origin format to introduce the main character and further adventures could bring other people into it." Wright also stated that pre-production for Ant-Man would begin in October and filming would begin in 2014. The next month, Disney moved the film's release date up to July 21st, 2015. And now on to pre-production. In October 2013, Wright revealed that he was in Los Angeles to work on Ant-Man by tweeting a photograph from the production of the June 2012 test reel. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Paul Rudd were soon being considered for the lead role, though Gordon-Levitt dismissed his consideration as a rumor. Feige stated that Ant-Man would be a heist movie and that a casting announcement for Hank Pym would come before the end of 2013. The next month, Feige stated that Eric O'Grady's Ant-Man would not be featured in the film, while Rudd became the frontrunner to play Hank Pym, and casting for the character's girlfriend had begun. Around that time, filmmakers' intentions to shoot in the United Kingdom were dashed because of lack of studio space, which Wright believed was due to the plan by Pinewood Shepperton to add 15 studios to their facility, which was rejected in part by the local council in May 2013 because the project was eyeing protected land. By the end of the month, the film was scheduled to be shot in the U.S. instead. In December 2013, Wright, a fan of the comic book since childhood, owning copies of Tales to Astonish number 27 featuring the Man in the Anthill storyline and Marvel Premiere 47 featuring the first appearance of Scott Lang, say that the difference between Ant-Man and other films featuring size changing is other shrinking movies are usually about somebody trapped small. This is different in that he can actually change size and he can do that at will, so it becomes more of a power than an impediment. Wright also talked about the challenge of directing a superhero film, saying, "Sean and Hot Fuzz and World's End are all R-rated films. I like the challenge of making a PG-13 film, because you got to entertain in a different way. You don't have the same tools." By December 19, Wright was in negotiations to star in the film, and Marvel announced that he had been cast as Ant-Man the next day. By the way, I think they meant to say Rudd became the frontrunner to play Scott Lang, not Hank Pym, but whatever. In January 2014, Wright posted a screenshot on his blog from the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes episode to Steal an Ant-Man, which features Hank Pym and introduces the Scott Lang character with the caption, "Homework." Michael Douglas was cast as Pym, with Rudd confirmed to play Lang. Michael Pena was offered an unspecified role in the film, and filming was scheduled to take place at Pinewood Atlantis Studios in Fayette County, Georgia, while Disney changed the release date once again, moving the film up to July 17th, 2015. The next month, Evangeline Lilly entered early talks to portray the female lead, and Wright announced on his blog that Bill Pope, who he worked with on Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and The World's End, would be his director of photography. By March, Wright and Cornish turned in a fifth draft of the script, and would allege disputes on the direction the script was taking. As well, Wright and Cornish wrote a scene intended for the post-credits of Avengers Age of Ultron that would have acted as a prelude to the film. Corey Stoll entered negotiations for an undisclosed role in the film, and by April, Patrick Wilson and Matt Gerald were cast in undisclosed roles. On May 23, 2014, Marvel and Wright jointly announced that Wright was leaving the project due to differences in their vision of the film, and that the studio was closing in on a new director. On the split, Wright said, quote, "I wanted to make a Marvel movie, but I don't think they really wanted to make an Edgar Wright movie." He also added that at one point, Marvel wanted to do a draft of the script without him, which was a really tough thing to move forward, as Wright has written all the previous films he directed. Wright continued, "Suddenly becoming a director for hire on it, you're sort of less emotionally invested, and you start to wonder why you're there, really." The majority of Wright's crew also left the project in the wake of his departure. By May 30th, Adam McKay had entered negotiations to replace Wright, but pulled out of negotiations the next day out of respect for Wright, who he was friends with. On June 7th, Marvel announced that Peyton Reed would direct the film, with McKay contributing to the film's script. McKay felt this was the perfect result since he would not be replacing Wright, but was able to help Rudd, who he was also friends with. Other directors that had been under consideration included Ruben Fleischer, Rawson Marshall Thurber, Nicholas Stoller, Michael Dowse, and David Wayne. Later in June, Feige stated that the film was still intended to be on the released on the July 17th, 2015 date, with production slated to begin on August 18th, 2014. Feige elaborated that much of the movie would still be very much based on Wright and Cornish's draft and the DNA of what Edgar has created up to this point. With Reed stepping in to direct and McKay reworking only parts of the script. Reed wanted to make sure that he wasn't just inheriting something or following someone else's lead. Excuse me. Or wasn't inheriting something that the evil studio had watered down to be something bad, Feige continued. He looked at everything. He talked with us, and he said, number one, I agree with the direction you're going in. And number two, I can add to it. McKay confirmed that Red helped him rewrite the script, calling Red great with dialogue, adding, the two of us holed up in hotel rooms on the East and West Coast. I think it was like 6 to 8 weeks we just ground it out and did a giant rewrite of the script. I was really proud of what we did. I really thought we put something amazing here and built on an already strong script from Edgar Wright and sort of just enhanced some stuff. Wright elaborated, the idea, the trajectory, the goal, and the blueprint of it all is really Edgar and Joe. It's their story. We changed some scenes, we added new sequences, we changed some characters, we added new characters. We took the two scripts and held them up together, they'd be very different, but the idea is all theirs. Some additions to the film that had not been featured in Wright's version included Janet Van Dyne, the Quantum Realm, and a fight with an Avenger. According to Reed, the Quantum Realm was the MCU's version of the Microverse, which cannot be called that due to legal reasons. The alternate name was suggested by consultant Spiros Michalikis, a quantum physicist and staff researcher at the California Institute of Technology, to inject elements of modern physics into the script. Reed also offered contributions to the revised script, as did Lillian Stoll, who contributed ideas to help flesh out their respective characters. Lillian's character received a fuller arc and added more action sequences as a result. Really important things when joining the film for Reed was emphasizing both Hope and Janet Van Dyne Moore, given the Wasp being a crucial part of the Ant-Man comics. For their efforts, McKay and Rudd were credited as additional writers of the screenplay, with Wright and Cornish credited for the screenplay and story. Wright also held an executive producer credit on the film. By the end of July, Wilson left the film because of scheduling conflicts brought on by the filming delay. The characters being played by Gerard and Kevin Weissman were cut in McKay's revised script. Also, Reed indicated that in addition to Georgia, filming would take place in San Francisco. Next month, Reed revealed that Scolling's daughter would appear in the film, and Gabrielle Ferrari and Andrew Barrera were hired to make further revisions to the script. Ferrari and Barrera were hired after Reed read their spec script Die in a Gunfight, which Reed felt was really interesting. Eric Pearson, a member of Marvel Studios' writing program who ran the Marvel one-shot films, did uncredited work on the film as well, scripting the strip club scene in Stanley's cameo. After reading the revised script, Evangeline Lilly felt that the film was pulled more to the MCU than Wright's version, which was much more in the Edgar Wright camp of films. She added that, while Wright's version was incredible and would have been great to film and watch, it wouldn't have fit in the Marvel universe. It was stuck out like a sore thumb. No matter how good it was have just taken you away from this cohesive universe they're trying to create. And therefore, it ruins the suspended disbelief that they built. Arnold Menzel from Captain America the First Avenger and Captain America the Winter Soldier was considered to make an appearance in the film, with concept art depicting him as a robot body from the comics. Yeah, too bad that never happened. Anyway, on to filming. Principal photography began on August 18, 2014 in San Francisco under the working title Bigfoot. Scenes were shot in the Tenderloin neighborhood in Buena Vista Park. By the end of September 2014, production on Ant-Man moved to Pinewood Land Studios in Fayette County, Georgia. David Callahan completed a rewrite of the film. Filming also took place at the State Archives building in downtown Atlanta, to double as PIM Technologies, which is located on Treasure Island, San Francisco in the film. In October 2014, Martin Donovan was added to the cast, and Feige revealed that Ant-Man would no longer star Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and would instead be the final film of Phase 2. When told by Slash Films' Jermaine Lussier that this placement between Avengers Age of Ultron and Captain America Civil War made the film feel like an afterthought, Feige replied, "It's not an afterthought. The truth is, the phases mean a lot to me and some people, but Civil War is the start of Phase 3. It just is. And Ant-Man is a different kind of culmination of Phase 2 because it's very much in the MCU. You meet new characters and you learn about Hank Pym and his lineage with the MCU over the years. But at the same time, it also picks up the thread of Age of Ultron in terms of heroes, major heroes, Avengers, coming from unexpected places. And in that way, it connects a lot. Also, Hank Pym's attitude toward Avengers, towards S.H.I.E.L.D., and kind of the cinematic universe in general, is much more informed after the events of Age of Ultron, and in a certain way, before the events of Civil War. If I could expand on this by saying, quote, we will put Ant-Man at the end of Phase 2 as opposed to the beginning of Phase 3, because it sets up a lot of things you're going to see heading into Phase 3, one of which is the mind-bending alternate reality landscape in Doctor Strange. On December 15, 2014, Reed announced on social media that principal photography on Ant-Man had been completed. For the film, cinematographer Russell Carpenter used a 1.85 aspect ratio shot with Arri Alexa XT and M cameras, using the M for fight sequences and helicopter filming. Camera operator Peter Roosevelt said, quote, Russell Payne's decision to shoot at 1.85 was a good call. Since at 2.35 there's insufficient height and frame to appreciate the vertical aspects of Ant-Man going from standing full size to flying through a crack in the floor. Carpenter Technicolor also devised a lookup table to darken the color palette. Carpenter said, quote, for a lot of recent comedies, I count my LUTs let's kind of Kodak, saturated and upbeat. But this show needed something different that affected skin tones in the Ant-Man suit, which dates back to the 1980s, so it looks a little run down. What I love about this slut was how it allowed the costume to retain the color, but took it from fire engine red to something a little more weathered. The filmmakers made extensive use of macro photography. Production designer Shepard Frankel said, quote, it's more visually interesting to depict things from Ant-Man's point of view instead of seeing him from a normal perspective. We want a realistic realization, not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with its oversized set pieces. Rebecca Baylor served as the director of macro photography, taking cues from Carpenter. Carpenter's set vibration became a tremendous problem when moving the camera during the macro photography because 1 inch off the ground is like 15 feet in the air. From Ant's perspective, he moved 4 inches. To human perspective, that's a football field. The filmmakers needed a creative solution, so they turned to Baylor, who had a background in commercial tabletop photography. In order to add Rudd's performance as Ant-Man when in the macro world, a centroid facial capture setup was used, with a 5-camera array of Alexas surrounding Rudd. Roosevelt explained, quote, one camera was set up vertically while the others were horizontal with the overlapping image areas, all set to record at 48 frames per second. This maximized resolution and provided 3D modeling of Paul's performance. Reed would then call out story moments with Rudd performing facial expressions that would later be composited on a CG Ant-Man. Etymologist Stephen Kutcher provided suggestions to the filmmakers on how to film live ants. And now on to the post-production. Following the completion of principal photography, Marvel released an updated synopsis revealing that Jordi Mola was included in the cast and the names of several supporting characters. However, Mola subsequently did not appear in the theatrical release of the film. Reed explained that the film's original opening, which was filmed and cut in the editing process, featured a standalone sequence similar to the opening of a James Bond film, where an unseen Pym was attempting to retrieve some microfilm from Mola's character, Castillo, a Panama Army general. Ray said that the scene was going to show Ant-Man's powers without seeing him, almost like an Invisible Man sequence. It's really, really cool. It started to feel tonally disconnected from the movie we were making story-wise. It also kind of like it set a standalone adventure, but it just didn't connect to the rest of our story. It felt like vestige of those earlier drafts by Ray and Cornish, which as a standalone thing was really cool. Dan Leventhal and Colby Parker Jr. served as film editors. In March 2015, Haley Atwell confirmed that she would reprise her role as Peggy Carter in the film. In April 2015, Reed said that the film was not completed yet and would be undergoing a little bit of additional filming. In June 2015, Feige confirmed that the character Janet Van Dyne will be seen, though the film will not address Pim and Van Dyne's infamous domestic abuse storyline in the comics, saying, quote, "We hinted at temper in a way that people who know the stories might go, oh, perhaps that's a bit of Hank's character, but not in a way that would ever indicate he beat his wife." Also in the month, Reed confirmed that there will be a post-credit sequence that may tie into the other films. Feige revealed that the post-credit sequence was shot by Anthony and Joe Russo for Captain America Civil War, saying the clip would be seen in that film, though it may be different takes, different angles. On June 25, 2015, Reed announced on social media that production of Ant-Man was complete. In early July 2015, an international teaser trailer revealed that Anthony Mackie would appear in the film as Sam Wilson, aka Falcon. Mackie appeared in a post-credits sequence as well, along with Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan as Steve Rogers / Captain America and Bucky Barnes / Winter Soldier, respectively. Stan stated the scene that was used for the post-credits sequence was shot in May 2015 and would appear in the middle of Civil War. Reed also said that the end of the film originally had a sequence where Ant-Man went after Carson to retrieve the stolen vital crisis particles, but then for a couple of reasons, I felt like maybe we should leave those particles out there. For the title sequences, Marvel again would design from Swarovski, who had done the credits for both Captain America the Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy, with the credits intricately connected to the film's overall narrative. And now on to the visual effects. Visual effects for the film were provided by ILM, Lola VFX, Double Negative, Luma Pictures, and Method Studios, with pre-visualization by the Third Floor. Double Negative handled the scenes featuring striking characters, incorporating the macro photography and motion capture performances shot in principal photography with digital models of the characters. Double Negative also worked on Ant-Man's shrinking effect, in coordination with ILM to be used by all vendors, to show the outline of his body, an element from the comics. Visual effects supervisor Alex Woodkey said, quote, "It's like a little time echo. As Ant-Man shrinks almost a stop-motion way, he will leave behind outlines of the poses he'd been in as he shrinks down. We'd have two CGI cameras rendering the action from different points along the timeline with slightly different framings. One will be the main shot camera. There will be a utility camera that will provide renders of static poses of Ant-Man at different points along the timeline." For the flashbacks in 1989, Douglas and Donovan appeared de-aged via CGI, along with Atwell as Carter, aged Omega with CGI, and John Slattery as Howard Stark. To de-age Douglas, Lola VFX used a similar process and technology that was used to make Steve Rogers skinny in Captain America the First Avenger, and Carter older in Captain America the Winter Soldier, as well as footage of Douglas's other films from the late 1980s as reference. Dex Griffin served as Douglas's body double and an additional reference for Lola, because of his striking resemblance of Michael when he was about 40. For Donovan, he only needed to be de-aged about a decade, so no double was used. The work on him focused on his eyes, neck, and chin. Atwell wore a wig on set, along with a fine layer of latex makeup to give the skin a more leathery look, with Lola transposing the facial features of an elderly actress onto her face. Method and Luma both worked on creating the various ants seen in the film, with Method creating the several species of ants to share among the vendors. Luma also handled many of the scenes at Pym Technologies when Ant-Man attempts to acquire the Yellow Jacket. ILM worked on the Falcon fight sequence, having done Falcon visual effects in the Winter Soldier. Using practical suit pieces built by Legacy Effects, ILM mixed live-action shots with digital takeovers and fully digital shots to create the sequence. ILM also handled the sequences in the quantum realm, providing an array of microscopic and largely psychedelic imagery for the subatomic shrinking, taking advantage of procedural fractal rendering techniques the studio had utilized on Lucy. And now, finally, onto the music. In February 2014, Wright announced that Stephen Price would score the film. However, Price left soon after Wright's departure from the project in May 2014. In January 2015, Christoph Beck, who worked with Reed on Bring It On, was hired to replace Price. Describing the film's score, Beck said, quote, "For Ant-Man, I want to write a score in the grand symphonic tradition of my favorite superhero movies, with a sweeping score and a big, catchy main theme. What makes the score stand out among other Marvel movies, though, is a sneaky sense of fun, since it is, after all, not only a superhero movie, but also a heist comedy. Hollywood Records released the soundtrack digitally on July 17th, 2015, and a physical release on August 7th. So overall, as the final film in Phase 2 of the MCU, it's actually pretty darn good, and it's just overall just a fun movie to watch. So overall, I give Ant-Man 4 arc reactors out of 5. Well, I hope you enjoyed my look into Phase 2 of the MCU, and be sure to tune in next year as we take up Phase 3 of the MCU, beginning with Captain America: Civil War. So, until next time, in the words of the late great Stan Lee, Excelsior!